Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we're taking a look at Go Collect's hottest comics for the week of June 4th. Now, usually I get these videos out on Monday, but it was a hell of a weekend, so my apologies. Here we are on Tuesday, taking a look at the 5 books moving the most in the market based on volume of sales. But before I get into the article, if you guys drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into this article here today. Of course, I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to do further reading. This article is always written by Matt Tuck. But coming in at the number 5 spot, we got to talk about one of my personal favorite books, a book I always talk about as being one of the most affordable blue chip comic books you will ever be able to get your hands on. But this one is XFactor number 6, up 22 spots, sitting in the 69 slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, this would be the first full appearance of the character known as Apocalypse and Sabanur, if you want to go by his Egyptian name, a book that came out in 1986, written by Louise Simonson and drawn by Ron Frenz. Now, when it comes to all-time greatest X-Men villains, Magneto most certainly takes the cake. But when we're thinking about, top 2, top 3, top 4, you gotta easily slide Apocalypse into that mix. And for a long time, the market has really valued this book in terms of it being a great X-Men key to get your hands on, one of the great Copper Age first appearances of villains to get your hands on. Of course, we got the X-Men animated show back in 1992 that really put, Apocalypse on the map in terms of like a lot of comic book collectors. And so there's been a lot of speculation right now that we might be seeing X-Men 97 come back around. And if it does, it might feature some appearances by Apocalypse, and maybe that would lead to further, villain appearances of Apocalypse in the MCU, which has given this book a lot of new life in the market, considering that it really fell off when we got the X-Men film with Oscar Isaac playing Apocalypse. That film, we won't go into that. We won't talk about how disappointing it was. It definitely hurt the brand of the character and definitely hurt the values of this book. But now, as things have kind of leveled off, everything's kind of leveling off with the market, we're kind of in this new state of the economy, this has surprisingly been one of the books that has actually been going up at the 9.8 grade to where currently it's probably one of the most expensive villain Copper Age books there is out there in the market. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look here at that 9.8 grade. There's 1,079 on the census. Fair market value has it suggested at 625, but the 30-day moving is actually 673. This is one that has been slowly creeping up over some time. You can actually see that it actually set the all-new record high even in this calendar year. And you can see, just kind of stepping back and looking at the graph here, there's definitely been other highs for this book in previous journeys, especially when we're talking about, the appearance of him in the X-Men franchise. He was even hinted at the end credit scene of the Days of Future Past film, I believe that it was. So this is definitely a book that has had spikes and then really fell off in the years of 2017 through 2020. But it's a book that has really shot up again and is definitely, in my opinion, one of the great Copper Age blue chip books to get your hands on. But of course, 1986 book, not going to see too many slabs at the bottom, but when you go into eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, typically you can find them being sold around that $50, $60, $70 range or so. All right, let's move on now to the 4th hottest comic of the week. And the 4th hottest comic of the week is one that I'm sure you guys are very well aware of. This one, of course, is Amazing Spider-Man number 252, newsstand edition, up 31 spots, sitting in the 46th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the book that came out in 1984, written by Roger Stern and Tom DeFalco and drawn by Ron Frenz, that would feature the first appearance of the black symbiote suit. Now, in my opinion, there are no must-haves for the collection. I mean, of course, with comic collecting, it's a buy what you like type of mantra, but this book right here is a must-have for the collection. I mean, when we think about all-time great Copper Age books, at least, or we think about all-time great kind of collection books, I feel like ASM 252 is one that feels like it should belong in everybody's comic book collection. I mean, this one right here is probably one of the more attainable, great covers that you can get for yourself, being that it's that Amazing Fantasy 15 cover swipe, is the first appearance of the black suit, and a book that has got super hot in the market over the last couple years or so due to the Venom movies that have been coming out, due to the speculation that maybe we're going to be seeing, a Tom Holland, Tom Hardy, Venom crossover movie. Now, why this book is hot this week? Well, this is one of those situations where I think there's been a lot of discussion still swarming around, the Spider-Man universe. I mean, there's been a lot of memes about Morbius, it's Morbin time. Maybe a lot of people are still thinking that, the Sony verse of Spider characters is still a thing that is brewing. And maybe one of the reasons why this book is getting hot recently is because because it did have a little bit of a correction, much like a lot of the other books. And now that the floors are sort of leveling off, I mentioned that everybody who is a collector basically wants to have their hands on this book. So it makes sense to me that there would still be a lot of movement on this thing as the floors are leveling off. People are seeing it as a good opportunity to buy back into this thing. But we're talking about the newsstand edition here. Of course, this is a year 1984, where in my opinion, newsstands still aren't, outnumbering that of the direct market editions. But again, I know, guys, I know we've had this conversation before, but I understand why people think that they're still more valuable because of the way that they're handled, et cetera, et cetera. But let's dig into the numbers for the newsstand ones here. 9.8s have fair market value 2,600 on the census. 1 year moving is 2,300. 90-day moving is 2,700. So definitely a book that has slightly been going up in value based on the newsstand copies. And you can see that because the newsstand copies, I think, maybe are a little more rare or a little more desired in the market based on that more hardcore collector, this is a book that has actually not had a big falling off based on 2021 prices. You can see sold price in March of 2021 was $2,200, and here we are in May of 2022, and the sold price was $2,750. So this is one of those situations. I'm not really sure how many are out there in the 9.8 newsstand grade at any given time in the market. But then if you go down to the 9.6, you can see that the prices aren't quite where they were in 2021, but the floor has leveled off. So I think a lot of people are thinking, hey, if you're someone out there who definitely wants to get your hands on this book, specifically that of the newsstand copy, now might be a good time to make that purchase. Of course, 1984 book, not going to see too many low-grade copies slab, but when you go onto eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, typically you can find them being sold around that $140, $150, or $60 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the third hottest comic of the week, and the third hottest comic of the week is one that we talked about actually just the other week when we did our She-Hulk trailer review. This one right here is Sensational She-Hulk #1, up 36 spots, now sitting in the 56th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, this of course is the book that came out in 1989. That would be the second solo series for She-Hulk. Wow, try saying that 5 times fast. Second solo series for She-Hulk, written and drawn by John Byrne, a book that came out in 1989. And this is one of those books that I think has really heated up in the market due to the fact that we recently got that She-Hulk trailer. She-Hulk apparently is going to be coming out in August. There were a lot of books that moved in the market. Certainly Savage She-Hulk #1 moved a lot. Didn't necessarily set its all new record highs, but we did see a flurry of sales. We got that Frogman book that moved a lot in the market. And this one right here seems to be a book that a lot of collectors are really starting to gravitate to because it feels like the show is going to take a lot of inspiration from this John Byrne run. I mean, the John Byrne run, typically speaking, is the one that a lot of old school comic book collectors view as being the best run for She-Hulk. You know, a lot of the fourth wall breaking, Deadpool-esque type of humor, which, as you can see from the cover right here, she talked about how if you don't buy this book, she's going to rip up all your X-Men, which I guess is still a good time to buy this book because, a lot of people are talking about X-Men books and they don't want their X-Men books ripped up. But due to the trailer, this is definitely a book that got hot in the market and saw a flurry of sales. And as we take a look at the numbers here, we'll take a look at the 9.8s, 444 on the census. Fair market value has it at 260, but you can see right here, 30-day moving is 290. So definitely a book due to trailer hype has had a little bit of a spike up in the market. This is lower than what it was in the height of 2021, but as you can see here, we're on the upswing from where the values were just say a couple months ago when we didn't have the trailer. Taking a look here at the overview of 9.6s, fair market value has them 110, 1 year or 30-day moving at 119, so kind of trading right in line. And then down here, of course, 1989 book, not going to see too many slabs at the low grade, but typically speaking, when you go onto eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, you can find them being sold around that $25, $30, $40 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the second hottest comic of the week. And the second hottest comic of the week is a book that I really love, a book I talked about on my books to start your comic book collection for. But this one right here is Spider-Gwen #1, up 38 spots, now sitting in the 31st slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the first solo title for the Spider-Gwen character, a book that came out in 2015, written by Jason Latour. Now, as far as Spider-Verse characters are concerned, outside of Peter Parker and Miles Morales, it definitely feels like Spider-Gwen is the third most popular Spider character. Now, I'm not counting Venom for the Spider-Verse, so we're just keeping it to Spider-Gwen here. But this is definitely a book that has been really desired in the market due to the fact that, Edge of Spider-Verse #2 has really shot up in prices. So when collectors can't get that first appearance or the main go-to book of the character they love, they often gravitate to that next best thing. And this is a book that feels like it was that next best thing for the character. It's an amazing cover, her first solo series. It's got her name right there in the title. Definitely a satisfying book to own. And with all the excitement due to, Into the Spider-Verse #2 coming out, was going to come out at the end of this year. I think the movie has actually been pushed out. So that's one of the reasons why, we're still seeing a lot of movement for the Spider-Verse books. But it does feel like, maybe we're going to have to wait a little longer to get the payoffs for this one. But this is a book that has definitely gotten hot, especially at the raw grade level. I mean, I feel like this is a book that you used to be able to find in those back bins for, $10 to $15 or so, but they've really, really shot up due to the demand. And it definitely feels like this is one of those books that has been kind of heating up in terms of volume of sales just because people are thinking that this is a character for the long haul. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look. There's actually a couple 9.9s on the census, but 9.8s have 2,289 on the census. Fair market value has them at 130, but 30-day moving is actually 142. So a book that is, slowly creeping up. I mean, actually, you can see that there was a record high sale at the $200 price point a couple months back, and that one has definitely had a correction. But, that's just one sale right there. You can see, generally speaking, the graph for this book has been going up year over year. And then, of course, 2015 book, don't really need to talk about the other grades, but typically speaking, when you go onto eBay looking for raw copies, like I mentioned, they're now selling around that $35, $40, $45 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the hottest comic of the week. And the hottest comic of the week is X-Men #1 Collector's Edition, up 62 spots, now sitting in the 36th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first issue of the X-Men run that came out in 1991, drawn by Jim Lee and written by Chris Claremont. This one here we're talking about is the Collector's Edition. Now, this is a book, of course, I've mentioned on all these hot lists, that is always hot in the market due to the fact that it's just a affordable book. There's a lot of copies out there. There's always going to be a high volume of sales, and it's always going to yo-yo up and down in the market, as Matt points out in the article. This is one of those books where, you might see like 15 copies sell on one day, and then you might see like 0 copies the next week, and then once again the market picks the book back up, and then there's a bunch of flurry of sales once again. So that's why this book is always kind of yo-yoing up and down. There's just so many out there in the market that there can always be a massive flurry of sales moving out there. Fair market value for this one is $100. 30-day moving is 107, so kind of trading right in line, and again right at that price point, $100. That is very, very affordable for a lot of collectors. But because this book is always showing up on the hot list, let's take a look at some bonus books right here, right? Let's just see if we can find something that's interesting to talk about, because I'm done talking about X-Men #1. Here's the past 30 days top 20. We got Spawn #1. This is the most sold books, not necessarily the biggest jumps in the market, but the most sold books. Spawn #1 always going to be up there because of the census count. There you see X-Men #1, again another book always up there. Savage She-Hulk #1 definitely got a flurry. Venom Lethal Protector, always a book desired in the market. Secret Wars #8 actually is really interesting, right? Because we talked about 252 today. A lot of people really love the Secret Wars book, but 252 is the first appearance of the Black Suit. X-Men #4, Omega Red, that one's always really interesting. Thor #1, of course, Jane Foster moving the charts. Moon Knight #1, another book still being sold a lot due to the Moon Knight show. ASM 361, First Carnage, always a book desired. Ultimate Fallout 4, another book always desired in the market. ASM 365, we were talking about Into the Spider-Verse 2 keys. Of course, this is another book that has the first appearance of Spider-Man 2099. Spider-Man #1 Silver Edition, the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, that covered that people just love. ASM 300, always a book desired. Thor God of Thunder #2, of course, first appearance of Gore. Everybody talking about the Thor books. New Mutants 98, another book that is moving a lot in the market. I feel like that book is going to get hot once again. A lot of talks about Deadpool 3 right now. Secret Wars #1, a book that is getting hot because of the Doctor Strange movie. Spider-Man #1, again, the other Todd McFarlane cover. Uncanny X-Men 266, a book that is really interesting that I feel like, maybe we'll talk about that in a second. And then with Spawn #9 and Wolverine #1, Spawn 9 being the speculation for Thor Love and Thunder, and Wolverine 1 being, just a Wolverine key. But X-Men 266 is one that I think is really interesting to talk about because there's a few factors that I think is really interesting. This is a book I feel like might be currently where it is in the market kind of undervalued, but there is the factor that there's the annual book that a lot of people are now pointing to as being the first appearance of Gambit Although to me, I don't think that actually matters. When it comes to which book is valuable, there's no rule that it has to be the first appearance. The only thing that actually matters is what the market wants. And what the market wants is this book right here. It doesn't matter that the annual book is the technical first appearance of this one. But this one right now, selling underneath the $900 range on the 30-day moving, which is pretty good when you compare it to where it was at the height of like the 2021 boom. It's definitely been coming down, and it's showing no signs of, kind of stopping as far as its pullback is concerned. So this is a book that I think about, we think about the year that it came out, the type of character. I compare it to New Mutants 98. Definitely feels like a book that is kind of a 50% value right there in the market right now, especially since the New Mutants 98 book, that typically sells around the $1,900 range, and you can kind of get X-Men 266 at half price. Gambit, Deadpool, I'd put them around the same tier of character, not right now necessarily because Ryan Reynolds has elevated Deadpool, but where Gambit once was in the market, he could definitely get back up there. I think I'm going to do a video about X-Men 266 versus the X-Men annual and talk about that first appearance thing, because again, there's no rule that you have to be buying first appearances, and those are the books that have to be valued. There's no rule to that. The rule is basically whatever the market wants is what the market wants, and that's the book that's valuable. So I do really think it's interesting to discuss that, and I feel like that's probably video worthy. Anyways, I'm rambling. It's the end of the video. You guys are probably not watching anymore. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Those are the hottest comics of the week. Go Collect's hottest comics of the week. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you in the next video.